Welcome everyone. If you have been to my channel before, you know that this is a very odd video for me. It's definitely out of my comfort zone, which is exactly why I want to do this video. So I am a retired United States Marine. A lot of my viewers know that. I mainly read fantasy and One Piece. I can't say manga as a whole because I really just started off with One Piece, and so my channel has blown up for people who really like One Piece. But today I always find myself looking at these more popular people on YouTube who review and rate books, especially females who really like romance books. And I feel like, now I'll be looking at my notes as I'm talking, I feel like I always want to convince the romance reader girlies and romanticy to read high epic fantasy. We're talking Lord of the Rings, Robin Hood, Game of Thrones, you know, all of that fun, good stuff, right? And you know, the other kinds of books that I like. Well, who am I to be telling someone to read these books when I haven't read the kind of books that they typically like? So I want to kind of give a little bit of a backstory as to why I don't read romance. And that's because I feel like I've been in that tomboy mentality like my whole life of, oh, I don't like pink because all the other girly girls like pink and I'm not a girly girl, I'm a tomboy. Or like, oh, I don't like romance gushy stuff because I'm a tomboy. Boys have cooties. And that's how I felt while growing up. And I feel like I need to grow and change, and not change who I am, but like add some different perspective into my life and just, you know, see why so many people like these popular romance titles. In this video, I will be talking about contemporary romance. However, eventually I would like to get into romanticy, see what that's like and how that's different, and then also see like classical romance, you know, some Jane Austen and stuff like that, and see if that's more my speed comparably to contemporary romance. Now, I have a couple questions for myself for while I'm reading, and is it enjoyable in the same way as Hallmark movies, or is it truly emotionally impactful? Like, I will go and watch a Hallmark movie, and I think about when me and my grandma would sit there together and we would watch these Hallmark movies, and it'd just be a wonderful time. It's usually during Christmas time. And just those fill me with such happy feelings, even though I know everything's gonna be okay and the conflict may be silly and whatever, and it's usually not typically very emotionally impactful. It's just a fun, good time. So are these books going to be popcorn reads, fun, good time? Or are they going to be emotionally jarring, I guess we could say? Is it going to be, I know it's not recognizing the face from Crime and Punishment. Also, if you guys are looking at these bookshelves, this is mainly my husband's books and this is mainly my books. All the fantasy and sci-fi and stuff, that's mine. This like fiction, literary fiction is his, just to let you guys know. So will I feel the proper emotions that the author wants me to feel, or will I either not care or be laughing when I should be sad, etc., things like that? And what is the genre like based on these select books, and how does it compare to fantasy? Is it something I'd see myself reading more now that I've tried it, and is it cringy? And those are the things that I'm going to be going over today. So the books that I have in the line for this video is Happy Place, Book Lovers. Both of those are by Emily Henry. I did have a romantasy on here, which is Divine Rivals. As you will see later in the video, I actually just read a couple chapters and then put it down for now. And then I read A Little Stranger by Catherine Center. So please stick around and see what I have to say for all of those books. Alright, well, here goes nothing. My first romance book as an adult. And my coffee, my banana pudding. I'm ready. Okay, so some of you may be wondering why I decided to choose Happy Place as my first book. So I chose it because I want to give romance the best chance that I possibly can, and I know it's a very popular, well-known, well-loved book. And so I was like, okay, let me give it the best chance that I can. Let me sit by my fantasy books, our shelves that I just put together the other day, let me cuddle up with my fall stuff and chill with my cats, and I just try to give it the best I can. I do like this quote, which is, "My best friends taught me a new kind of quiet, the peaceful stillness of knowing one another so well you don't need to fill the space, and a new kind of loud, noise as a celebration, as the overflow of joy at being alive, here, now." I can't relate because I grew up with a loud house, with a loud family, but I definitely grew up not really liking the silence and not really liking silence, but I have definitely formed many friendships where I can just be chilling with them. Like, we don't have to talk. Now, I'm a big yapper, so I will be yapping, but we don't have to talk. We don't have to say anything, and it's really nice. So yeah, I do like that quote. It's nice. Okay, so there's this part, it's not a spoiler at all, it's literally 7 pages in and it doesn't matter, but Harriet sees her friend, and the friend's like, "Oh, what is it, new face?" And she's like, "Yeah," and then she's like, "Yeah, my doctor does great work, or your doctor does great work," and she's like, "No, it was an Etsy spell." And I'm like, what are you saying right now? What does this mean? It's not like funny, so I'm like, what? It just doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Anyway, weird. It's been a couple days since I have read Happy Place by Emily Henry. I don't even have it over here. It's okay. It doesn't matter. So I took a lot of notes, and I did not finish it. I stopped at 82 pages, which I think is about 21%. So let me just go through my notes here, and maybe I'll talk about it a little bit. I'm gonna try not to do any spoilers, but I think a lot of people who want to read this book have already read it. But anyway, a lot of jokes have missed. The first mention of a guy, when she's talking about like describing his eyes from far away but thinking about it up close, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, I know from experience that they're this color." Like, for example, because I was tangled up in the sheets with him or whatever, in the next paragraph I'm like, okay. There was many mentions of their physical relationship like every other page, and it wasn't gratuitous or something that made me, I don't know, it wasn't gratuitous or raunchy or anything like that. That definitely wasn't the problem. It was more so that, like, she didn't give me any reason to root for them to be together other than that they had been together for so long. If you're telling me that, see my notes, if you're telling me that you guys have been in a friend group for like 10 years together, you guys have been together for 10 years and then broke up or fiancés, whatever, these people are not your best friends if you didn't tell them for 6 months that you guys broke up. Why? And then you find yourself in the stickiest freaking situation where you're all at a vacation together because you guys didn't want to tell them that you guys broke up. But if you guys have been friends for so long, they're not children. They will still be friends with both of you if nothing has happened like severely between the two of you. So I don't understand. Why am I supposed to be rooting for you guys when you've only told me back in the past and in the present that you were completely focused on his physical attributes and your physical relationship together? And yes, there was trauma that was mentioned and stuff like that, but it kind of felt like, oh, here's my trauma, throw it in the wind, and like that was it. It wasn't like emotional or anything. It was just kind of like, here it is, take it. And then like in such a non-serious way is the way that was mentioned, like when she was talking about like everyone's parental situation. I was like, what is this book? And then the dialogue, oh my gosh, the dialogue was so bad. It was so cringy. I have like pictures on my phone of things, and she said my nipples pinch. I was like, girl, they what? Huh? Oh, also she's supposed to be a freaking brain surgeon. She's supposed to be a brain surgeon. And the only way she knows how to describe any sort of feeling is something, a zipper, a fire, whatever, going down her spine. Girl, you're a brain surgeon. Put that into your character. Like, that would be in her dialogue. She would be smarter. Just like in the way that she would speak. And they were witty to a fault. To where it just didn't feel like real people talking. And now it's just like, this isn't funny. This isn't witty. It's just kind of like, oh, like this is, you know, what else? Oh, why in this bedroom is there one bed? Obviously that's whatever. But the shower isn't like in a separate area. It's kind of like you can view the shower from the whole room outside of the US. So I don't understand. Just tell them you don't want to be in that room. And then I'm like, okay, so this was just a setup for them to have their physical relationship again. And then, you know, maybe they talk out stuff. But like when I read some reviews and I talked to one of my very close friends about the book and she read it, she was like, yeah, the relationship was just very physical. It didn't really seem like too emotionally deep. And so I was like, okay. And then even reading some reviews, I kept seeing the same thing, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad I figured that out. And I mean, really figured that out in like 20 pages, but I kept going to the 80 page where I just like, I can't take this anymore, because there's no reason for me to root for these characters, and this is a romance book, and you want me to just sit here and root for them, but I don't like them. I don't really like any of them, and they all feel the same. All the females, maybe the males talk a little differently, but all the females talk the exact same. Like, they're all the exact same amount of wittiness. Like, have some varying details and quirks and whatever about your characters, but she really just doesn't. And I feel like I can argue that even more because I've already read Book Lovers at the point of when I'm recording this. But, I mean, I've already read all of the books that are in this video at the point of recording this because I decided to sit on my reviews and everything for the books. But yeah, that's my rant review. I've probably got so many more things to say. Yeah, that's all for Happy Place. I'm so surprised so many people love this book. Because for why? For why? What is there to love about it? Unless okay, it's a popcorn read for sure. Like, I didn't have to turn on my brain to read it at all. But I kept getting pulled out of the story from all the things that I was talking about. I need my coffee. Yeah, I don't get it. Obviously this is a DNF out of 5 stars for me, so I don't get it. I don't get it. And that's okay. That is okay. Other people can like it, I just don't. Okay, I hope you guys are ready for this. So I've been reading Book Lovers and I am 182 pages, which is 100 pages more than I got from Happy Place. Because Happy Place was not it for me, but you guys already know that. So these red tabs are things that I don't like, and the green ones are things that I do like. So there are definitely things that I do like about this book. And I have some things also on my phone that are highlighted, and I may just put them in there. Most of it has to do with like cringy dialogue, or dialogue that's just like Emily Henry creating characters that are just so witty to a fault, where it's like, these are not real people. Like, these don't feel like real people. Also, when he like was like, oh, you're lying, I can tell by the divot in your mouth or whatever, and like touches her mouth, and I'm like, why are you touching her without asking? But it's just weird. And that they also, that I don't like that they made out while drunk, and that I get it, but like, it's a personal thing for me. I think alcohol kind of sucks, and having you do things you wouldn't normally do and be a person that you're not. And but I'm glad they didn't go too far that time. And then they also drank again, not as badly, I guess, and then skinny dipped in the river area. I was like, okay. But I will say, she has been building intrigue with the mom backstory and the ex-boyfriend backstory, and kind of like her having all this guilt of something that she blames herself for, which I'm going to assume is not her fault, and she's just putting it all on herself, and she probably needs to go see a therapist. But and that a lot of the times the things that her and Charlie talk about are relating back to their career, which makes sense considering their careers coincide with each other. But I really enjoy that comparatively to her other book, Happy Place, where them being Harriet being a brain surgeon doesn't matter at all. And yeah, I have a lot of notes on Happy Place that I talked about, but I don't have as much for Book Lovers. There's definitely stuff I don't like, some cringy stuff, you know, but it's definitely not as bad, not as cringy. The characters feel a bit more fleshed out. The guy seems like he talks a little different to the girl, and I feel like Emily Henry writes all of her females the same, probably. And I only say that because Libby's really witty, Nora's really witty, Harriet's really witty, all of Harriet's friends that were females were really witty, and I'm just like, why are you writing them all like this? Like, this isn't good banter to me. This is just like, you want to make them witty to be witty. I don't know. But I enjoy this one more, and it probably makes sense because it does give kind of Hallmark vibes, but a little bit more mature, which I'm not against per se. Personally, as a personal choice, is not. I don't like that, but in terms of like being a little bit more graphic, but it's definitely not too graphic. And when it does get a little bit more heated, I just kind of skim it because I don't want to read about that personally. It makes me kind of uncomfortable. So I'm gonna keep reading, and I'm about halfway through, I think. So hopefully I will finish this book very soon and then continue on to my next romance book. So the next book that I read and finished, as you guys have been watching, is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And I can't tell if I kind of look like Justin Bieber right now in 2013, or if I'm looking like, you know, any other character with a bowl cut. It's not what I'm trying to give though, but whatever. So Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I finished it, so that's good. So I definitely liked the elements in this book that had to do with Nora's life and her career, and not really what has to do with the romance, because like when you read the back of a romance book, you know who's going to end up together, which is really frustrating. And I was interested in the career, I was interested in the small town, I was interested in kind of the Hallmark kind of vibes that are in this book, but there was still cringy dialogue. The wittiness was still the same. If I were to read a line from like some of the witty dialogue in Book Lovers, and I wouldn't really be able to tell who is who because they have that same amount of wittiness and charisma that's just like charisma level 100, but not in a good way. But I do like that at least the dialogue in this one included her job. And I was actually talking to one of my friends about this, and she said that if you're an author and you are writing a book, you can do all the research you want want, but it's very hard to write a character that is smarter or more educated than yourself. So like going into Happy Place, it would be really hard to write a brain surgeon as a character if you yourself are not a brain surgeon, you know? Or something along the lines of like in the medical field or something like that, because there's a lot of life experience there that may impact someone's life with being a brain surgeon, that if you're not that, then you don't understand. But as her being a publisher, Nora being a publisher and the other guy being an editor, it works. It definitely works. All my red tabs in here, so you can see I've got red and green tabs. I've got red and green tabs here. The red is the bad stuff I don't like. And then the green is the stuff I did like. There's stuff in here that I liked. There's stuff between I think it's the grandma. There's stuff about the relationship that's good. Did their relationship feel still a bit physical? Yes, but not as much as Happy Place. They definitely were emotionally relating to each other. It's just that the characters didn't feel super fully fleshed out, and that partly has to do with the dialogue. I didn't like the dialogue, and there's not really any character growth. Like, I mean, I guess you could argue that there was some, but like basically the end of the book, she's like, all right, I'm gonna be me, and this other person is gonna be them, and we're gonna be us together. But not changing any of the like bad parts about herself. So I don't know, and it just like, it wasn't a strong plot, but I guess it's not supposed to be. It's kind of like the Hallmark-esque. What did I write? I have notes on this one. Yeah, I said all of her characters are like cut from the same cloth, sort of witty. She builds intrigue in this book, which is good, with the ex-boyfriend back to the story and the mom backstory, and they use things in their conversations to relate to their careers. I don't like that they had some interactions with each other while they were drunk. I'm glad they didn't go too far, but it's like a personal thing that I don't like reading about that, because I've been through some not good things while drunk, because you're not the person that you would normally be, and you are not doing things you would normally do when you're under the influence. So I didn't really like reading about that, but I'm glad they didn't go too far. But I think of the times that they were like making out, they were intoxicated. But of course there's a good old assume things and not actually ask what's going on, and just assume that I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, assume you can't do something or whatever. And she did have like a break of routine, which was good for her character, but I think that break of routine was kind of like, just on this vacation she's gonna go back to being herself because of the way the book ended. And I don't know, the backstories weren't super strong, like emotionally. The way that it was built up, I kind of expected it to be more impactful, and it just kind of wasn't. And I definitely didn't like Nora. I get that Nora went through lots of stuff, and that she obviously has trauma. I mean, a lot of us do. I would argue almost all of us do, right? But the way she's just like, I can fix it. I can fix everything. Like, I'm like, girl, you need to go to therapy and like fix yourself before you start trying to fix everybody else. The ending is pretty good. At the same time, she didn't grow. So it's like, and yeah, I mean, that's basically my thoughts on Book Lovers. There were aspects that I liked and there were aspects I didn't like, but there was more that I didn't like than what I did like. So for me, if I were to rate this, it would be a 2 out of 5 star, which I know probably seems harsh, but like, there were so many times, I mean, for me to pull out all these red tabs and be actually taken out of the book because I didn't like something so much that I had to put a red tab on it, was just, I mean, that's a lot. It's just, I mean, and a lot of it does have to do with the dialogue. And some of the, like, in here it says, "You're not my real dad." And I'm like, and also she, again, with the down my spine thing, which is the same thing she did in the last book. And I'm like, and she said nipples pinch in this book as well. And I'm like, if you could find some other ways to describe anxiousness, nervousness, whether positive or negative, that would be great. That would be great. And yeah, I didn't hate it. I know 2 stars, like, it's not a good book, but I didn't hate it either, because that would be a 1 star or a DNF, because I couldn't get through Happy Place. But I can see why people like it. It's just that there were a lot of elements that I feel like I was supposed to feel a certain way about, and I just didn't, because she wasn't giving me enough. She wasn't giving me what I needed. And yes, it is a very simplistic writing style, which I don't think is bad. I didn't have to turn on my brain for literally any of the books that I read or tried to read in this video because it just was, you know, simpler writing, and I think there's a time and a place for that. I don't think it's a bad thing at all, but it is definitely not my go-to. I definitely prefer to try to learn and challenge myself when I read and really get my brain moving and grooving and stuff, because I have some physical health issues that impact my memory and my brain and stuff, and so I feel like when I'm reading books that are challenging me, it is helping me continue to make my brain work in those processes. So yeah, but that's Book Lovers for me. I think that's about it, I think. Yeah. I wouldn't not recommend it to people. I mean, I know it's a 2-star, but like, no, I wouldn't recommend it to people, honestly. Unless they're like big romance stans and also really like books and don't mind the payoffs not being super big. Because like sometimes you don't want a super serious, super emotional book, and people did say this book and Happy Place were emotional, but and I can see where it could be, but she just didn't pull out enough for me to be super emotional about it. So yeah, those are my thoughts. So I have finished Book Lovers, and now we'll be moving on to reading on my Kindle because I got these other books free from the library and they're due in 9 days. So I guess I have 3 books that I may possibly read in 9 days, but I'm definitely not going to be forcing myself to do that if I can't pull it off, which is perfectly fine, but we'll see how that goes. I just woke up, so that's why I look like this. I've been reading Divine Rivals on my Kindle, and then I decided that I don't really want to read that right now. I started reading it. I just felt like if I'm going to read a fantasy right now, I want to read an epic high fantasy. I want to get back into Malice by John Gwynne. I don't want to read this story in which I feel like it tells me too much on the back anyway. If it wouldn't have told me, if it would have left that element of surprise, I feel like I would have wanted to continue, but although I don't know everything that happens in the story, it's like I know some main plot points because of the back of the book. And I feel like so many romances do that. Regardless, I started reading Hello Stranger by Catherine Center, and I already am enjoying this book. I am, let's find out. I'm on chapter 12, which is 34% in the book, and I've been liking the progression of it. I've been liking, you know, we have a very stubborn female main character. I hope that there's some character development there and that she learns from that, and, you know, she has something happen to her which affects her career. If you don't want to know all the stuff on the back of the book, I'm going to try to be a little bit more vague. But she has something happen to her that affects her career and affects her life pretty severely. And so she's trying to figure out how to deal with that. We're just kind of dealing with that with her. And, well, there's a male main character, and I think I know who he is because there's different instances where it makes it seem like a different guy, but I feel like it's the same guy, but that's not revealed, so that's not like a spoiler or anything. I just think that it's possible that it's the same guy. Anyway, I like her writing better than Emily Henry's. That might be an unpopular opinion, but already her writing seems a bit, not a bit more mature, but just more mature. She seems a little bit better written. The dialogue is much better. It feels more realistic instead of like super witty to the point of like me looking at it and being taken out of the story. I feel like I might be able to breeze through this book, but I do have homework and stuff to do today. Just my laptop is right here, so we'll see. We'll see where the day takes me and what all I have to do today for school, but I will definitely try to keep y'all updated. And, you know, if I don't get to do too much filming, you'll at least know by the end of this video my feelings on this book in its entirety, hopefully. But yeah. So the next book that I actually read and finished was Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. Read it on my Kindle, borrowed it from the library. Also, the 2 books that I read, the other 2, Book Lovers and A Happy Place, I will be donating to my local library because I didn't necessarily like them, but I know someone else. Catherine Center, Hello Stranger, more intrigue, The writing was better. There wasn't any like spice scenes. I'm not a spice girl, but I'm also not necessarily gonna dock points for spice, but I will dock points if it's like the relationship is mainly physical. And I felt like this relationship had more emotional ties to it. But in the beginning of this book, I already knew what the big reveal was just by reading it from the beginning. I'm like, oh, I can't say it because it spoils the entire thing, but I feel like it's not hard to see, which is maybe already saying too much, but that's really what took me out of the book, was because there's no big payoff, because it's just kind of like, okay, I expected this from the very beginning. And I didn't read the back of the book, and there were times where I doubted my original thoughts, and then as I got to the end, I was like, oh, so I was right literally all along. Wow, what a big surprise. I liked that we were dealing with a character who was dealing with a new physical health issue. As a person who deals with a lot of physical health issues after being retired out of the Marine Corps medically, I definitely can understand and relate what it feels like to get these new diagnoses and have to deal with life and have to mitigate things or mitigate pain or try to live life a little differently than you previously would, and I can definitely appreciate that. But I think it's just that and like I said, the writing was better, the dialogue was better when I'm comparing it to Emily Henry's books, because I wasn't like cringing, and there were definitely like quotable things in this book. And like I have all sorts of notes in my Kindle, but it's still not a book for me. It's still not something that I would reach for and go like, oh yeah, I loved this book. I definitely liked certain aspects of it, but I wouldn't say, oh, I loved this book, it was great. There were more things than just the romance, and a lot of it had to do with her new physical health issue that was going on, which, like I said, I can really appreciate. But our main character was very, very stubborn and kind of, I don't want to say dumb, because I know she was going through a lot, but her friend Sue was really dumb and not empathetic or sympathetic towards her situation, because she was like, oh, let's do this for you, and she's like, but I can't see anyone, like I don't recognize anyone at this party, and she's like, but no one is strangers, and it's like, but if she has face blindness, everyone is going to be a stranger to her. Like, she's explained this to you multiple times, you're gonna be a freaking idiot. Like, it was, oh gosh, Sue really made me angry. And then there were other times where Sue said some smarter things, like emotionally intelligent things, where I was like, why weren't you feeling that like a couple chapters ago? Why weren't you this Sue? And then also just the thing that happened with her family, and it kind of felt like everything took a 180 really quickly, and I was like, well, I don't know, a lot of it was unrealistic when it comes to the end and things that happened throughout the book. It just felt really like, okay, not even like, oh, this only happens in the movies, but yeah, it's things that only happen in the movies or only happen in books, but like, it was even more unrealistic than that, where I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling this, I'm not. So, yeah, that wasn't it. It wasn't it for me. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, because these are my opinions, and you're gonna feel the way you feel about it, I'm gonna feel the way I feel about it, but yeah, it's a 2.75 out of 5 for me. It was almost a 3, except for just the stuff, just the plot. I mean, the way the plot unraveled and the way things flipped on their head, and just, I was very upset last night when I finished the book at like 12 a.m. Oh, also this main character in this was very delusional, and I thought it was just a joke, but it felt very young. When the character's supposed to be 29 years old, and that's, some people step on her, but yet she's super stubborn about other things, and then you would think she would stop letting her stepsister bully her, but it just kept happening. I'm like, you're 29 years old, just cut her off. Anyway, sorry. Okay, so I wanted to record for the end of the video. I actually forgot this bit when I was doing my other ending. Is it enjoyable and the same as Hallmark movies, or is it truly emotionally impactful? Honestly, this was kind of neither for me in this aspect, and I think it's because like Hallmark movies only take an hour of my time, and romance books take up like 6 hours, 5 hours, something like that, and they don't give the same kind of vibes, at least not these ones. Maybe I need to go pick up some holiday romance books that are just fluffy popcorn reads, don't have to turn on my brain sort of thing. And there were definitely emotional aspects to the books, but it wasn't truly emotionally impactful. Like, I don't feel like my life changed by reading any of these books, or that I got new perspectives or anything like that. Really. Did I feel the proper emotions that the author wanted me to feel? Probably not. I was definitely not surprised or emotional at the endings of either of the books that I actually finished. I don't know if I was supposed to, but I feel like I just didn't feel what those authors wanted me to feel. It just wasn't there. I just wasn't connected to these characters or the story, really. And I guessed a lot of the plot points that were going to happen that were fairly important, especially the last book. How does it compare to fantasy? So I have a separate notes for this one. I said there's a lot more going on in fantasy, and so far the romance I had read are more popcorn romances. There's emotional backstory and emotional elements, but I don't really feel for the characters. And I feel like the books maybe are easy for just being easy's sake, like just to be easier reads that you don't have to turn your brain on, because I don't feel like you have to do that for every book to like turn your brain on and learn something new. But I definitely like that about books. I like that you have to jog your memory to remember these characters and these lands and, you know, all this kind of stuff from fantasy that you don't really get in these contemporary romance books, at least from the ones that I had read. I feel like maybe they're just not as well written or not as well read, like the authors maybe not as well written or well read, but again, they may have their own style, you know. The books that I like to read are much more detailed and have a lot more depth within their world and the world building. Obviously, like for fantasy, they're creating their own world, and then the characters, there are so many more characters and so many more perspectives, and I really like that because you're getting the perspectives of the good guys and the bad guys, and, you know, their everyday thoughts and their everyday lives, and seeing a lot more about them, so you get so much more attached to them, because the world feels living and breathing, and the characters feel living and breathing, and I just didn't get that from these books. Like I said, I really, really like multiple point of view, and all of these were single point of view, except for Divine Rivals, but again, I didn't even get to the point where Roman had a perspective. And then world building's an aspect of fantasy I really enjoy, and that's not to say that contemporary romance couldn't have descriptive writing about the world, but it's just not the same in the books I have read. Granted, not very many in the romance genre. It hasn't been very detailed at all, even within their own world, even if it's in America and whatever. Is it something I'd see myself reading more now? Probably not, unless someone were to come on this video and say, here's all the things that you didn't like, and here's all the things you do like, and here are these book recommendations for things you might actually like. And then, was it cringy? Yes. There was definitely cringy parts. I definitely didn't like when the authors would put in common day slang in their books, because it just like, I just didn't like it. It just felt weird. It felt cringy to me, and that could just be me, but I just didn't like that. And you guys know my feelings about all these other books, and I don't even know if I talked about Divine Rivals. Yeah, part of me wanted to just see what people were really enjoying, and could I try to convince someone to read fantasy now that I've read romance? I don't know, because I obviously did not really like romance that much, but I love fantasy, and there's so much more to fantasy that you could get. And you can get romance in fantasy, and not just romantasy, but you can get like Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, but them together and him being that loyal man, you know, and there's so much I could talk about with Lord of the Rings, but I'm just not even going to go into it right now. But that is kind of my thoughts and my wrap up on this video. So yeah, let's get back to the other outro. Now, what did come out of this that was good was that I want to read more now, and it got me back into reading. These were popcorn reads. I didn't really have to think about them too much, and that I can definitely appreciate. That is all good things, all great things. But there were questions that I wanted to ask myself for romance, and like, how much does it differ from fantasy? And like, I felt like there was a lot that I pulled out of it of, you know, a lot of the writing is not as challenging, which is fine. A good popcorn read is just like, I love sitting and watching Hallmark movies, you know, a good popcorn movie, you know. It's not necessarily what I go to reading for though. because like you could say it's harsh to give these books under 3 stars or whatever, but like, is it though? Because if I spend 5 or 6 hours of my time, it's not like watching a 1-hour movie where it's like, oh, okay, it wasn't that good, but it was only an hour of my life. Not like 12 hours in total of my life spent on these books with characters that I don't really like. I think that there is romance out there that I will like. I wanted to try to do kind of like different subgenres of romance, and so, but I only stuck with contemporary romance for this video because I tried to read romantasy and was not feeling it at the time. But I do want to branch into more classical romance, you know, some Jane Austen and stuff like that, because I think I might like those books more because they might be more of my speed, but I'm not sure yet. But if you guys have recommendations for me, I will absolutely take those in and try to check them out. I'm not writing romance off in general, but I will say that Emily Henry is probably not the author for me. Catherine Center, I think that she has potential to be an author for me. I know that this is her most recent book, I think. And I think that you know, it's nice that she doesn't have spice in there and that the relationships weren't fully physical, but it was definitely, I mean, obvious, but men written by women, like, men wouldn't typically act this way. But yeah, so there are a lot of takeaways that we could take from this video on how I feel about romance and contemporary romance as a whole, like modern contemporary romance, and it's that I don't think it's necessarily the genre for me. But does that mean I will write it off forever? No. Anyway, that is the end of today's video. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope that maybe you'll check out my other stuff and maybe you'll be convinced to read some fantasy. Who knows? But I know if I'm super negative about the books that people like, then maybe they won't agree with my taste. But that's okay. That's okay. We're all human. We all like the things that we like. And I hope you guys have a wonderful and blessed day.